Calling to order the meeting of the Buncombe County Board of Elections for Tuesday, April 25th, 2023. Guests, thank you for being here today. It's nice to see a well-attended meeting in the middle of the afternoon. Our official attendance record is the sign-in book. If you haven't signed in the book, I hope you'll do so before you leave the meeting. Mr. Whitney, do we have anybody participating online today? Just one. Already, well, we always stream our meetings. We encourage everyone who is interested and unable to attend in person to tune in online. You can find out what's going on. And we are actually able to respond to questions that people might have as long as they submit them through the chat facilities. So without further ado, we shall begin tackling the agenda. First up is the minutes from our last meeting. Colleagues, everyone have a chance to give a review to the minutes?
No.
They are.
Good.
It was a brief meeting and they are brief minutes. Give you a chance.
Can we come back to them?
Okay, well, we can come back to the minutes. Item is office updates. Director Duncan,
Thank you.
please update us.
So as you are aware, we have 2 open positions and we conducted 2 rounds of interviews for that position and we are at the offer stage right now. So we're moving along on those and we're hoping for start dates of May 22nd for those. We also have scheduled our precinct chair orientation meeting. Karen has met with both party chairs. To have that scheduled, we're doing 3 sessions, a daytime session, evening session, and a virtual session. So try to increase participation in that. The party chairs are in charge of making sure the invites get out to all of the precinct chairs. So we're excited about having that be an improvement this year.
Director Duncan, could you share with us the dates? The dates of those sessions of the precinct? Okay. And I know that you have already sent that around. I've seen those dates, but I just don't remember them offhand.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, remind me, put me on your reminder list. I apologize for being totally absent.
And might we pause there? Just, might you share a little more about the goal of those trainings?
So the precinct chair orientation is mostly aimed at helping the precinct chairs who are responsible for submitting names of poll workers to the chief judges. They help, it's the party chair is the one who officially submits the names, but it is the precinct chairs who help go gather those names. So Karen has put together documents to help them understand what makes a good poll worker, what the timeline is, those kind of things. And she do that with the party chairs just last week.
Okay, so specifically on just recruiting poll workers.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
My next topic is budget. So there are 2 adjustments that were asked for from us. They were actually relatively pretty small. One was a reduction of $11,000 from election services specifically. All departments were asked to reduce their budget, but $11,000 was asked for us. And we had put in the budget to rent laptops for early voting. And we found that project, after going through details with IT, that wasn't a feasible project. So it was really easy for us to choose that one and reduce that from the budget. So we'll be proceeding as we normally do with the laptops that we have.
Okay.
How much did you take off?
14,000.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Very credible, very credible.
And then we were also asked, so we, many departments asked for many positions in the budget. And that's the position that we asked for, the candidate coordinator position. That one is supported by management and is being submitted to the commissioners. We've been asked to move our start date to February 1st. So that is after filing, but I feel lucky that we have that position being considered, so that's a worthwhile compromise. The next thing is that for the new board swearing in, we have secured, AK has secured the courthouse. So we'll be able to have the swearing in there. Excited about that and going to have it. And then finally, just a reminder, we talked about this at a past meeting, but Royce's last day is this Friday. So, which are well. Those are all of my updates. Are there any questions?
Why not? Thank you. Thank you for the update. The next item, excuse me? Hey, Cheryl.
Question so much as I wanted to say what a wonderful person Joyce Cannavale is. She assisted us with reviewing voter education materials for accuracy and completeness. She was prompt, she was professional. She was just a wonder. She's a delightful person to work with. What a wealth of information. I'm sure you guys are sad, but she's really fantastic, and credit to all of you.
She is, and everyone might recall the recent briefing that Joyce gave us about voter list maintenance. It was great. It was thorough, it was clear, it was on point. We're gonna miss her terribly, especially on election night. I've never done an election night without Joyce
Yeah,
Kennedy.
go here, go here, go
And
here.
Joyce knows, right? Joyce knows where everything goes and who's supposed to do what, so, you'll find out. But thank you for that observation. Thank you for sharing that. The next item on the agenda is sort of budget related. It is the express vote request update. Director Duncan.
Yeah. Commissioner's budget information session and presented to them. They've already gotten multiple documents and a video demonstration of everything that we have seen in our meetings here. So they've had that, but they gave me the opportunity to be there and give a very short, I was given 10 minutes to talk about our express vote expansion project, but it went very well this morning. I kind of went through the gist of our points. One of the things that I hadn't done a good job of communicating previously was that we had to make a choice. The machine that we currently have is not supported anymore, and that had to quite come through. So I was able to make sure that they understood that, and it was well received. So the next step is the formal adoption would be at budget adoption is how they're choosing to go through this process. And for us, that is the final budget adoption is June 20th. Remember that the fiscal year starts July 1st. So it's a small window there, but we should be able to have our resolution of adoption that first or second week of June. And Kurt has drafted that resolution for the commissioners, and I have read the for action for that. So I'll get confirmation of that date from EA soon. But it went well. We had just one question actually from the commissioners.
So just the whole timeline of it. So at the end of June, the commission is going to approve this. And then we have a new fiscal year. When are we hoping to?
Good question. So for implementation of the actual project is what you're asking. So we would place the order July 1st. And I have reached out to ESNS how fast we could get the machines in. If I anticipate that it will be quick. There's not, they have a lot of stock of express nationwide products. But if it wasn't, we have enough express votes to run the municipal election as we would with express vote, because we can use them from from our AD equipment from election day, since we already used it.
80 votes, yeah.
So we would, put together our express vote campaign with Kate, which we've already started talking about, making videos and being at community events to show what the voter will experience during early voting. Make sure that we have that all in mind and start that in the municipal election. And I actually have already had media requests to follow the municipal election, follow express vote through the municipal election. So I think that that's I like that because, of course, for two reasons. I want express vote information to be out there, but it also gives some good exposure to the municipal elections, which usually don't get along. We should really be in good shape by the time the primary comes around. Be ready for fighting.
Yes. That's it. I did want to bring something to everybody's attention. Recently, AVL Watchdog had a story about the Woodfin Water and Sewer District. And there were some questions raised about who is eligible to vote in that election. And there are people who are customers of Woodfin Water and Sewer who are not in the voting district. And there was some question as to why that is or how that can be changed. Folks reached out to me. I know they reached out to Director Buncombe, and the bottom line was, gotta go to Raleigh. Work with Woodfin Water and Sewer, work with legislative representatives if you want to tackle like an issue like that. We just don't have the authority at this level. But I didn't know if any of y'all had seen that AVL Watchdog story. It's just one of those things that have been bubbling under the surface. And some folks raised the concern.
Now, that's really interesting to me because the history of that district is tied up with our 20s boom year,
Exactly.
because those districts were not formed to be representative of anybody, but they were formed to issue bonds.
Right.
And that's what the bank here was making so much money off of, 40% haircuts and selling the bonds. Oh yeah, 40%. And they were making, and so that was the purpose of these districts. And there are others that still exist that they're no longer relevant. That's like the last one.
It's the last.
But people could easily mix that up with the idea that it's supposed to be representative, and it's not. It's just, it's really for a fiscal financial purpose.
Funding.
But if the legislature wanted to make an adjustment there, they certainly could, although that could get pretty weird for us too.
Yes, it could.
Because then we'd have to figure out how to fold in people who are into a special little precinct
Right.
made of customers.
Is that a living boundary? Is it something that has to change with expanded development?
Sure, just take me out and shoot me, okay? But that's, but anyway, that's always interesting whenever I get that old history of the from the 20s, from the financial boom and crash. And every once in a while, it's been 75 years and it still reaches up and snatches us.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny that you mentioned it. Director Duncan did a lot of research herself and discovered the same thing that you just reported, that of all those water and sewer districts that existed back in the 20s, there's only one that is still operating here in Buncombe as it was originally intended, and that is Woodfin Water and Sewer. And that's because it was the survivor. It wasn't folded into other districts as some of the others were.
Or then just quit being
Right.
relevant when MSD took over everything. Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to compare because there's been a little stuff going on in the background about that. Members of the public, anyone have any questions, comments, issues? Ms. Brain?
In February, you each received email.
Yes.
Conference.
Yes.
Since this looks like Express Road is going to go through, seems to be going through.
Mhm.
I'd like to bring that issue up again as far as additional audit.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for reminding us of that. Tom Brain sent us all an email back in February. He noted the possibility of expanded use of express vote, and he described what he viewed as an enhancement of the audit process, which basically would have entailed taking the different ballots that come out of the express vote machine, the ones that go into the DS-200, and subsequent to the election, run those express vote ballots through an optical character reader, basically to compare the results of the count that occurs using the optical character reader against the count that occurred on the DS-200. It is a very interesting idea. It's outside the authority of this board to change the election process or the audit process. But you know, it showed some interesting ideas on how to enhance the audit process. I'm guessing there may be folks at the State Board of Elections who would be interested in a proposal such as that. We don't have the authority to undertake that kind of activity, but that does not mean that it would not be worthwhile. And Tom may want to direct this to Karen Brinson Bell, our State Board Director, to see if the State Board would be interested in considering an enhancement to the audit process. As I read it, I was very intrigued by it, but I realized it was definitely outside our realm of authority here, because we are not the only county that's using the express vote. And there's over a dozen others that are doing it. And if you're doing it in one, my guess is you'd have to do it in them all. But I don't know, colleagues, I don't know if y'all had a chance. Ms. Block, you have a question, comment?
Just so I can, so the idea is an optical character reader would literally read the printed names versus the barcodes and compare them. And do those machines exist right now to be able to read those?
Well, yeah, optical character readers are certainly available.
Just
You'd have to design something so that we all remember what the slips of paper look like.
Right.
So that you
It
could
would
stack
be
those up
that
and run them
paper.
through an optical character reader quickly, because
Mm.
we are talking about tens of thousands.
Right.
And there's also the issue that if you're going to do that, you have to ensure the integrity of that printed ballot. If you're running that ballot through another kind of machine, you've got to make sure that that machine is not going to fold, spindle, or mutilate that ballot in any way or mark it in any way, because that is the official paper ballot of the voter. So those are the kinds of issues that I know that the state would tackle. And, you know, the state is the entity that has tested, reviewed, authorized the use of these express vote machines. And so if that express vote process would be altered in any way, I know they'd want to be driving that. Ms. Black.
I don't know how that would enhance what we're doing, because when we do our audit, we would be looking at the names because that's the only thing that we as humans can read. And we would be comparing those printed names on that ballot and counting those as the votes from those ballots in order to do the audit.
Should be that the audit is done in what, 1, 2 precincts,
Right.
as
Yeah.
opposed to, we've seen some elections that were literally turned on 1 or 2 precincts.
So that would be a much bigger issue of the percentage of precincts that are required to be audited. Yeah, that's way beyond us.
Well, also
But-
the machine, we've been told, at least by the representative, that the machines are capable of creating a digital copy as they scan.
Okay.
And that digital copy could be used. Because you have, the digital copy,
Right. And as this discussion gets deeper, it heads east to Raleigh. Um, well, it is above our pay grade.
But the
But
two,
anything that builds confidence in the process.
Yeah, all for that.
but the two precinct sampling
Mhm.
is statutory.
Yes, it is.
It's a percentage of.
Yes. So it's a percentage.
Percentage, right? And
It's a
it
percentage,
tends to
not
be,
two. It works out to two.
right.
It's where we are, but it's a percentage. So, but if there's an opportunity to increase confidence and the technology is rising to meet the opportunity, then the statute ought perhaps to rise as well.
Right. And Mr. Brain, in his email to us, focused on the confidence piece and how crucial it is. We do have a lot of audit procedures, testing and audit procedures in place before, during, and after the election. I mean, there's a lot, but it's always worth taking a look at our process to see areas where we can enhance it. So again, there's not, okay.
Or not alternative, but additional audit procedures, because we participated in the pilots of the, forgetting the name of it, but it was the more.
Risk limiting
Yeah.
audit.
Yeah. They're looking at ways to have different types of.
Right.
I think that it's would be an open.
But anything that involves touching the paper ballot
Calculating this would be.
is,
Yeah, right.
however well-intentioned.
Right.
It really has to be surrounded by some pretty serious legislative authority. I could think so, just on as a matter of principle. So.
We all know it's very specific ways that recounts are.
Yes.
Who can touch that darn thing? You know, I mean, it's really the lines. That's the precious.
Right.
Article.
No.
We always want.
Amen. I don't know how responsive that is, but I would encourage Tom to send it up the chain. We aren't in a position to do that because if it came from this board, I believe it would be perceived as an endorsement. And what I would suggest is just send this up. The email that he sent described the reasons for it very clearly, to enhance confidence in the process, and run it up that flagpole and see if they salute. But I do thank Tom for his interest. Appreciate it a great deal. Right. Right. Not just a concern, not just a, hey, I don't like this. It's like Mr. Brain found something that he thought would go a long way towards addressing his concern. Appreciate that. Mr. Brown.
Doug Brown. At some point, that's all fine to move everything towards the state board needs to elect things. But you're making a decision. And we're trusting you that these machines are verifiable and they can be used with integrity. And there's evidence out there that they can be tampered and they have been tampered. And
Excuse me.
taking that into
And when someone can provide that evidence to us and share it with us that relates to the ES&S equipment, Express Vote, and the entire suite, that's okay. But that's a little tough to just put out there that this process can somehow be undermined or tweaked in an unfair fashion. And I believe that's the assertion you're making now. And I've never seen evidence of that. I've not seen evidence, and I was a big skeptic when Express Vote was pitched to us. My skepticism has been overcome with my experience with the machine and the fact that, we had this approved originally in December 2019. We've been using these machines ever since. They are used in over a dozen other counties. And I'm not aware of any controversy in North Carolina with respect to the way the express vote helps voters mark their ballot. So if there's evidence of that, I'd love to see it. I think it'd be very helpful to see. But absent that evidence, I'd rather not even hear the assertions that there are problems with it. I want there to be proof that there's problems with it before we really talk about that. These machines have been tested by the North Carolina State Board of Elections, and they have been used extensively. In Mecklenburg County, everybody votes using an express vote machine during early voting and on election day. Everybody marks their ballot with this. And I simply am not aware of any controversies or any problems down there. So if there are, bring them on in and let's hear them.
I did present something from the John Locke organization, and I'll present some more things that for your consideration.
Okay, but rather than what I would hope to see are specific examples of problems, as opposed to this could happen, this might happen. Please show me something that did happen. That was problematic. We can speculate all the time and speculate worst case scenarios, but it would be awfully helpful to get concrete evidence. Did anyone else have any questions, issues, concerns?
I'd just like to comment as a person that just moved from Mecklenburg County and using those machines. I guess just as a voter, not involved in the process in any way, but I never could confirm by looking at a barcode what my vote actually was. So I guess just speaking from a user, just the average voter who goes to vote, my confidence wasn't there.
Did you ever take that ballot that came out of the express vote that had all your selections and put it in a different express vote machine to confirm that you would get the same list of candidates? Because every voter has that opportunity to do that.
That's
Well,
or at least to me.
by golly, Buncombe's different. And one of the things that, no, this is very important. The staff has been doing and will be doing a whole lot of work with the voting public in this county to make sure people know how this works. And the sort of concern that you're expressing is the concern that I had when I first saw this ballot marking device. And it is crucial that we listen to those concerns and address them to the extent that we can. And one of the things that I'm going to be telling people is put it in another express vote machine. It ought to be the identical list of names. And if it's not, we have a problem. And we want to know about problems as soon as they're identified. So I'm sorry that communications in MEC aren't quite what they could be, should be, but in Buncombe, we're going to try it. This is the output from the express vote ballot marketing device. And it gives you the races and your votes on the side. And should be. And I also noted on this that with respect to Mr. Brain's suggestion regarding audits, an optical character reader would actually have a pretty easy time reading the characters on these slips because they're really printed in a very standard format that's easy for an OCR to scan with very, very close to 100% accuracy. And that's the knock on optical character readers, that they are not 100% accurate, but with a standard font set, it becomes a whole lot easier. So don't mean to get too techie on that stuff. I used to be driven nuts by optical character readers that were not 100% accurate. But thank you. And I'm sorry, could you please tell us your name? Benita, is this your first meeting here?
No.
It's not. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. You seemed like a new face to me. I'm glad you're here today. Thank you. Anybody else? Any questions?
Minutes.
We're back to item 1. Colleagues, have you all had a chance to give those minutes a review, our Pi Day minutes? All those in favor of adopting the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The minutes are adopted 4-0, and I apologize. I should have noted at the top of the meeting that our colleague Glenn Schultz was not able to make it today. But we expect him at the next meeting. And speaking of which, the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 23rd in this room at 3:30 p.m. And with that, I think we can adjourn our meeting at 4:05 p.m. Thanks, everybody.